They don't want you to know how far drone technology has come. They'll tell you drones are just for filming pretty landscapes or delivering overpriced coffee. But what if I told you one just pulled off a rescue at Snow Canyon State Park? An injured hiker, stranded and alone until a drone found her first. A 65-year-old woman was stranded at a canyon, unable to move. The clock was ticking. Rescue teams faced a brutal reality. Getting her down from over 400 feet up wasn't just difficult, it was nearly impossible with traditional methods. Too steep, too far, too dangerous. That's when they decided to use a drone. Not for searching, not for surveillance, but for physically saving a life. The rescue team needed rope, lots of it. Usually, they'd have to haul it up by hand, requiring at least 4 strong men battling against treacherous terrain. Except this time, that wasn't an option. The landscape fought back. A rope-launching gun? Useless. It fell 100 feet short, leaving the woman still stranded and the rescuers out of easy solutions. That's when someone had an idea. Let the drone do the heavy lifting. Think about that for a second. A tiny flying machine carrying the first crucial step of a high-risk rescue mission. A spool of twine, nothing more. They attached it to the drone and sent it skyward, threading the air like a lifeline. One mistake. The wind knocks it off course. The payload's too heavy. The battery fails. But no. The drone soared straight to the rescuers at the top, delivering the thread of hope literally into their hands. With the twine in place, they pulled up the real rope. The big one. The one strong enough to support the full weight of a human being. And just like that, the impossible became possible. Rappel time. 40 stories down. One mistake means free falling into the abyss. But the system held. The woman was lowered inch by inch until her feet touched solid ground. Oh, and she wasn't alone. 3 other hikers, also stranded, had to make the same nerve-wracking descent. Thanks to the drone, they all made it down safely. Now here's the part they don't talk about enough. This wasn't some lucky accident. This was the future of rescue operations playing out in real time. Just a few months earlier, these same teams used a drone to light up the darkness for a lost hiker. Before that, they sent drones to deliver emergency supplies to stranded victims, radios, water, the difference between survival and disaster. But while on one hand, drones are saving lives, on the other, they're finding things that should have never been seen. Take this. A drone operator flying over what looked like an ordinary cornfield caught something that sent chills through the internet. At first, just rows of swaying stalks, nothing out of the ordinary. But then, movement. A figure half hidden between the rows. White face, red nose, bright unnatural clothing. A clown, just standing there. It wasn't just standing, it was watching. The second the drone camera locked onto it, the clown's head snapped up. Direct eye contact. That frozen moment where you realize something is staring straight back at you. Then, it turned and bolted, disappearing into the maze of corn like it had been caught doing something it shouldn't. So, what are we looking at here? A harmless prank? A viral marketing stunt? Or something else? Some argue it's all staged, just another internet hoax designed to go viral. But others aren't so sure. Because why there? Why a random cornfield in the middle of nowhere? And why run the second it was spotted? For those who remember the bizarre clown sightings that swept the country a few years ago, this is a little too familiar. People in masks lurking where they shouldn't be. Watching, waiting, and then vanishing without a trace. Drones aren't just exposing creepy clowns and finding secrets. They're peering into places no outsider is supposed to see, deep into the Amazon, where entire civilizations exist in near total isolation. No phones, no satellites, no trace of the modern world. Just villages hidden beneath the endless green canopy, untouched for centuries. And yet, every now and then, a drone camera catches a glimpse. A handful of huts, a clearing where figures move, carrying bows, arrows, tools of a world that most people assume no longer exists. They don't know they're being watched. And if they did, they wouldn't be thrilled. Because to them, the outside world isn't just some abstract concept, it's a threat. Brazil's Indigenous Affairs Agency, FUNAI, keeps tabs on these tribes from above, not to spy, not to disturb, but to confirm that they're still there, that they're still surviving, that the ever-creeping hands of modern civilization haven't swallowed them up yet. Because make no mistake, those hands are reaching, and they're not pulling back. Illegal loggers, gold miners, drug traffickers. They don't care about sacred land or untouched cultures. They care about profit. And if they have to rip apart the rainforest to get it, burn villages to the ground, erase entire peoples without the world even noticing, that's just the cost of doing business. There are stories, horrific ones, of uncontacted tribes being wiped out before anyone even knew they existed. No records or names, just gone. Governments claim they're protecting these lands. There are laws, borders, protected zones. But laws don't mean much when there's no one to enforce them. When a remote rainforest village is under attack, who stops it? Who even knows it's happening? That's why these drone missions matter, because without them, these tribes would disappear in silence. And just when you thought the world couldn't get any stranger, let's talk about a lake that quite literally defies reality. A body of water that doesn't just dry up, but transforms, leaving behind a cryptic, otherworldly pattern of mineral circles that look more like an alien landing site than anything found on Earth. This isn't a legend. This isn't some Photoshop trick. This is Spotted Lake, hidden away in British Columbia's Similkameen Valley. And no, you're not supposed to get too close. The Syilx people have known about it for centuries. They call it Kliluk, and they don't just see it as a weird quirk of nature. This lake is sacred. Its waters, believed to have healing properties. Its presence, respected, protected, and deeply spiritual. Which is why, if you try to walk right up to it, you won't get far. The area is restricted, and for good reason. Because let's be honest, when something is this unique, this mysterious, it's only a matter of time before someone decides they need to exploit it. And that's exactly what happened. During World War I, this lake wasn't revered, it wasn't protected, it was mined. Its minerals weren't used for healing, they were extracted for ammunition. Think about that. A sacred place, stripped of its resources to fuel a war. And for decades, the land wasn't even in the hands of the people who cherished it most. It was privately owned, at risk of being lost forever, until 2001, when the federal government finally did something right. They bought it and returned it to the Okanagan Nation, a rare win. While people marvel at its colors, whisper about its healing powers, and fight over who gets to control it, another mystery was unfolding somewhere else, one that no one was supposed to see. Across the border, far from the calm, sacred waters of Spotted Lake, chaos was brewing in the Arizona desert. No ancient legends, no mystical minerals, just dust, heat, and one man running for his life. A convicted felon, fresh off a prison break, tearing through the wasteland, hoping he could disappear. And for a while, it looked like he might. That is, until a group of YouTubers sent a drone into the sky. Some YouTubers will do anything for views. But these guys? They weren't even trying. They were just out messing around with their drone when they saw a prisoner on the run. A full-blown manhunt. A high-stakes chase. A prison escapee on the run, thinking he had the perfect hiding spot. And the best part? This wasn't even supposed to happen. They hadn't planned a drone video that day. They weren't looking for trouble. But then came the emergency alert, straight from Arizona State Police. An inmate had escaped, last seen heading east near North River Pass. And as luck would have it, these guys were already in the area. So what do? pack up and go home like everyone else? Nope. They launch the drone. A car, parked in the middle of nowhere. No roads, no buildings, no reason for it to be there. Suspicious? Absolutely. Then they see him. A figure crouched behind a cactus, shifting around like he knows he's being watched. It's subtle, almost too easy to miss, but not from the sky. And the second they realize what they're looking at, everything changes. Now it's serious. They call the cops, feeding them real-time updates as the drone tracks every move. And soon enough, the authorities are swarming the area. Then, out of nowhere, the guy bolts. 1 second, he's motionless. The next, he's sprinting like his life depends on it. The officer hesitates for a split second, just enough for the prisoner to get a head start. Then, the chase is on. And let's be real, this guy has everything to lose. He's running through uneven desert terrain, dodging rocks, leaping over dry bushes, kicking up dust as he tries to shake the cop. And for a second, it looks like he might actually pull it off. The YouTubers are losing their minds, watching the whole thing from above. The cop is gaining. The prisoner is running out of ground. He slows. He turns. He throws his hands up, surrendering. This wasn't the only time a drone saved the day. Far from it. This next case, this one was even more terrifying, because it wasn't a wanted criminal running for his life. It was a child, lost, alone, and completely unaware of the danger closing in around her. September 14th, 2024, in Dubberly, Louisiana. It was a quiet night until it wasn't. At some point, 10-year-old Peyton Saint-Ignan, a child with a history of sleepwalking, left her house in the dead of night, barefoot, unconscious to the world, and walked straight into the woods. By the time her family realized, she was long gone. And the terrifying question lingered. How far could a sleepwalking child go before she woke up? The search was instant. Local police, state troopers, an entire town mobilized, shouting her name, shining flashlights into the dark, praying they weren't too late. Louisiana forests don't play fair. There were swamps, predators, deep pockets of darkness where no human should be alone, let alone a child. Every passing minute without a sign of Peyton made one thing painfully clear. This wasn't going to be a simple search. And then, like clockwork, the skepticism crept in. How does a kid disappear that fast? Why weren't there tracks? No sign of struggle? No sound? Nothing? People whispered. Was there more to the story? Had she been taken? While panic spread, one man in Arkansas got the news. Josh Klober, drone operator, thermal imaging specialist, and, most importantly, someone who actually knew how to find people in the dark. He had done it before. He knew the drill. But this case was different. This was a kid, with no hesitation. He got in his truck, gear in tow, and headed straight for the search site. Drones don't need sleep. They don't get scared. They don't get lost. Klober launched his into the sky and started scanning. Every tree, every open patch, every inch of that unforgiving terrain. And then, after miles of nothing, a blip. A tiny, solitary heat signature. Could have been an animal, a trick of the camera. But Klober wasn't guessing. He locked in on the spot, relayed the coordinates, and within minutes, the search team was there. Peyton was curled up in the dirt, still in her pajamas. One shoe missing, eyes closed, unaware of the nightmare she had just survived. 1.5 miles from home. 24 hours alone in the wilderness. Completely frozen, not moving at all. At first, they all expected the worst, until she started moving. Relief hit. She was alive, scratched up, mosquito-bitten, exhausted, but alive. Technology had saved a life. And just weeks later, it was about to expose the absolute laziest criminal Arizona had ever seen. It was the middle of the night on July 29th, 2023. A different kind of case, but still drenched in absurdity. No missing child this time, just a man with a severe lack of life choices and an apparent aversion to finishing a crime he started. He didn't just break into the store. He broke in and made himself at home. You'd expect a burglar to be in and out, grabbing whatever they can before disappearing into the night. Not this guy. No, he decided the best way to cap off his grand heist was by climbing a storage rack and taking a nap. Maybe the thrill of breaking and entering drained all his energy. Maybe he needed a moment to reflect on his poor decision-making. Whatever the case, there he was, passed out like a guy who had just done a double shift, blissfully unaware that the store had security cameras, alarms, and actual police officers looking for him. The Glendale police weren't about to waste their time playing hide-and-seek in a retail labyrinth. They sent in a drone. And this wasn't some flimsy toy. It was a tactical machine built to move through tight spaces, spot hidden threats, and, most importantly, outthink criminals who believe pillows are valid weapons in a fight against the law. The drone wove through the storage area, scanning shelves, creeping through the shadows, tracking down their mystery man. And there he was, on top of a rack like some kind of exhausted raccoon. The camera zoomed in. He was motionless. Either he was still asleep or pretending to be, banking on the possibility that if he didn't move, the cops would just leave. Bad plan. As the drone hovered closer, he woke up, and instead of, say, running, or even attempting to talk his way out of it, he did the one thing that absolutely guaranteed he'd make it onto a list of history's dumbest criminals. He started hurling pillows at the drone. Yes, pillows. In what universe did this man think he was going to neutralize a high-tech surveillance machine with the power of plush fabric? The drone operator was unbothered. He dodged every incoming pillow like he was playing a first-person shooter on max difficulty. And yet, somehow, just a few months later, another suspect managed to take the concept of bad decision-making under pressure to a whole new level. December 4th, 2024, Brookhaven, Georgia, a Wingstop of all places. Police arrived to arrest a man with an active warrant for assault. Simple enough, right? He was sitting there, minding his own business, probably enjoying a basket of wings, completely unaware that his day was about to take a sharp turn south. Officers walked in, ready to take him into custody, but then, without warning, he bolted. Now, a rational person might have run for the exit, maybe dashed through the parking lot, made a break for the nearest alley. But no, that would have been too predictable. Instead, this guy made a decision so baffling it almost deserved a slow clap. He didn't run out. He went up. In a desperate last-ditch effort to escape, he scrambled into the back of the restaurant, climbed onto whatever he could, and somehow, defying both logic and dignity, shoved himself into the ceiling. It scanned corners, checked tight spaces, and then, bingo. The camera locked onto a heat signature, and there he was, wedged in a dark, grimy corner above one of the bathrooms. Motionless, trapped, probably panicking. There was no duct system leading to freedom, no hidden escape route, no movie-style ventilation shaft he could army crawl through to evade capture. He was just stuck, and now the police knew exactly where to find him. With nowhere left to run, he finally did the only thing left. He climbed back down and surrendered. No fight, no grand finale. Just a man who had committed to an objectively terrible idea and was now facing the consequences. It was all caught on video, body cam footage showing him resisting, climbing, and ultimately failing, plus drone footage capturing him crammed up in the ceiling like a raccoon with a warrant. By now, it should be clear, drones aren't just changing the game. They're winning it. Case in point, Donald Donnie Irwin, a man who for nearly a decade had simply vanished. On December 29, 2013 in Camdenton, Missouri, Irwin was last seen driving his silver 2002 Hyundai Elantra. No distress calls, no known enemies. Just a man in his car, going about his life, until suddenly he wasn't. Days passed, then weeks, then years. No leads, no breakthroughs, no Irwin. His family searched, police investigated, but nothing turned up. Eventually, the case went cold. Another unsolved mystery, another name added to the list of people who had disappeared without a trace. And then, almost exactly 10 years later, a man with a drone flew over a pond. James Hinkle wasn't a detective. He wasn't a cop. He was a YouTuber, a guy who liked flying drones and filming interesting landscapes. But on this particular day in December 2023, as his drone soared over a private pond in southern Camden County, something in the water caught his eye. A shape, a structure, something unnatural. He zoomed in, adjusted the angle, and there it was, a submerged vehicle. Now, at this point, most people wouldn't think twice. A car in a pond? Probably just an old wreck, right? Nothing worth reporting. But Hinkle didn't shrug it off. He got in touch with the property owner, then the authorities. And before long, a full recovery team was pulling the car from the murky depths. The silver 2002 Hyundai Elantra, Irwin's car. For 10 years, the answer had been sitting right there, hiding in plain sight. And just like that, the case was back on. Authorities brought in cadaver dogs to search the area. They combed through every inch of the pond's perimeter. Then, on December 24th, 2023, they found something else: human remains. It wasn't just a body. Among the bones was something specific, something that proved beyond a doubt who they had found: an artificial hip. Irwin had undergone hip replacement surgery before he vanished. And now, here it was. Forensics would still need to confirm it officially, but investigators already knew. After 10 long years of silence, Irwin's family finally had an answer. It wasn't the one they had hoped for, but it was the truth. But not every drone-assisted search ends in tragedy. Randolph County, North Carolina. An 81-year-old woman with dementia vanished without a trace. No warning, no indication of where she might have gone, just gone. If you know anything about dementia, you know this wasn't just a missing person case. It was a race against time. Every minute that passed was another minute she could have wandered deeper into the unknown, and the landscape wasn't doing her any favors. Her home was surrounded by rough terrain, cornfields, dense brush, uneven ground. A nightmare scenario for search teams. Officers knew that a standard search on foot could take hours. Hours they didn't have. They needed an advantage, something that could cut through the uncertainty, something fast. So they launched a drone. And just like that, the odds shifted. From the sky, the drone scanned every inch of the land, slicing through the confusion like a blade. Below, a K-9 unit tracked her scent, moving with precision. The search, which could have dragged on into the night, lasted just 25 minutes. 25 minutes. That's all it took. The drone spotted her a few hundred yards from her home. Alone, lost, vulnerable, but alive. Officers wasted no time. They moved in, reached her before the situation could take a tragic turn, and brought her back to her family. Relief doesn't even begin to describe what they must have felt. For the sheriff's department, this wasn't just a successful rescue. This was proof. Proof that drones weren't just gadgets. They were lifesavers. Do you think drones will get even more advanced in the future? Maybe they can solve even more mysteries.